All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to jump right in. We're going to look at something super interesting.
Okay, sounds good.
It's all about how teachers, educators, how they see and understand what's going on in a classroom.
Fascinating stuff. I know you sent me some research, a study called,
Yeah, it's called Student Teachers and Teacher Educators Professional Vision. Findings from an eye tracking study.
okay, right, with the eye tracking. That's the one.
Exactly. And we're going to really break down what this study tells us about how, new teachers, student teachers versus those really experienced educators, how they perceive, they see, they understand those classroom situations, especially when something unexpected happens.
Right, those curveballs that teaching always throws at you.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to kind of distill the key insights from this research so you can understand the super important aspect of, well, what makes a great teacher, right? That expertise.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this study has some really practical takeaways for educators at all levels.
For sure. So, where do we even begin? Let's lay the groundwork here.
Well, the heart of our discussion today is this 2021 study. It was published in Educational Psychology Review. The researchers, Corrine West, Katharina Rosenberger, and Wolfgang Muir, they used a really interesting method, actually. They combined eye-tracking technology.
Oh, wow. Eye tracking. That's cool.
Yeah, so they could see where people were looking, right? But then they also had the participants talk about what they were thinking and seeing afterwards. So they combined that eye tracking with verbal feedback. It's a really cool approach.
So they could actually get a sense of not just what people were looking at, but how they were processing it, like what they were noticing.
Precisely. It lets them delve into this idea of professional vision, both in student teachers who are still learning the ropes and then those seasoned teacher educators.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second, right? Let's talk about this professional vision. I mean, what exactly are we talking about here?
All right, it's a great question. It's this idea that expert teachers, they're not just passively observing everything in the classroom.
Yeah, it's not just like watching kids run around, right?
Exactly. They develop this almost sixth sense, this ability to hone in on specific things that are actually really important for student learning. And the study highlights that it's not just one thing. It's a two-part process.
Mm-hmm.
First, you got to pay attention to the things happening in the classroom, the things that are either helping or maybe even hindering the learning process.
Right, like noticing if a student is struggling or maybe if a particular teaching strategy is really working.
Exactly. But then the second part, and this is crucial, is using your professional knowledge, your experience, to figure out why those events matter. It's about connecting those observations to the bigger picture of learning. It's almost like having a radar, for those critical moments in a really complex environment.
That's a great analogy, like an experienced doctor who walks into a room and can instantly tell if a patient is in distress just by observing small details.
Exactly. It's like they can see things that a less experienced person might completely miss. That's what professional vision is in teaching, this ability to sift through the noise and focus on the signals that truly matter.
Okay, so the study used this really interesting approach, right? They combine eye tracking and then asked folks to just talk about what they saw. Can you break down why this is so valuable in this context? What makes this mixed methods approach so insightful?
I think what's so cool here is that you're getting this really comprehensive picture. You're not just relying on what people tell you they saw. You're also getting this objective data from the eye tracker, showing where their gaze was actually focused.
So you can see if maybe they were looking at something but not really processing it, like if their eyes were on something important, but they didn't actually notice its significance.
Precisely. It can reveal these fascinating discrepancies between what we visually register and what we consciously perceive and interpret. And that's where professional vision comes in, right? It's not just seeing, it's understanding the why behind what you're seeing.
So they showed this short video, right, to both these student teachers who are still in training and then those experienced teacher educators. And you mentioned there's this critical incident in the video. What exactly was happening in this video?
All right, so picture this, right? It's a normal primary school classroom. The kids are just starting their independent work time. And there's this one girl, she's heading back to her desk, super focused, ready to get to work.
Like she's in the zone, ready to learn.
Exactly. And she doesn't even seem bothered by some, minor things going on around her, other kids moving around, that sort of thing. But then a teacher walks over to her, goes to a shelf that's attached to her desk, grabs this box of note cards and starts looking through them.
Oh, so the teacher kind of interrupted her flow?
Yeah, exactly. And the researchers flag this as a critical incident because it raises some really important questions about Well, teaching decisions, like, was it really necessary for the teacher to interrupt her like that? What impact might that have on her focus, her engagement, and ultimately her learning?
Right, because even though it seems like a small thing, that kind of interruption can really throw off a student's concentration.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so critical. It's one of those seemingly insignificant moments that can actually have a huge impact on the learning environment.
Okay, so everyone's watching this video, student teachers, experienced teacher educators, and the eye tracker's doing its thing. What did they notice about just the general viewing behavior of the two groups?
Well, as you might expect, both groups spent a good chunk of time looking at the girl in the video. After all, she's the central figure, and, the critical incident revolves around her.
Makes sense. She's the focus of the action.
But here's where it gets interesting. The teacher educators, those with more experience, they had significantly more fixations on the girl, and they spent more time looking at her overall.
Hold on, remind me, what's a fixation again?
Oh, right, sorry. In eye tracking lingo, a fixation is when your eye kind of pauses on a specific spot. So more fixations generally means you're paying closer, more sustained attention to a particular area.
Gotcha. So the experienced teachers were zeroing in on her more intently.
Yeah, their gaze seemed drawn to her more consistently, which suggests that maybe with experience, educators become more attuned to the main players in a classroom situation, the students, and those potential moments that could be really crucial.
Fascinating. So it wasn't just about seeing her, it was about the level of attention they were paying.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even more interesting, the real aha moment. They asked everyone to describe what they had observed in the video, right? And this is where we see a huge difference between the two groups.
Okay, lay it on me.
So despite the fact that everyone, both groups, looked at the girl at some point, only 6 out of the 28 experienced teacher educators actually mentioned the teacher interrupting her, with the note cards.
Hmm.
They identified that as the significant event, the critical incident. But get this, none of the student teachers specifically mentioned it.
Wow, so even though they saw it, it didn't register as important to them.
Yeah, it's like their eyes were seeing it, but they weren't really noticing it in a pedagogical sense. They weren't connecting it to the bigger picture of teaching and learning. And this really highlights the difference between simply seeing something with your eyes and actually recognizing its significance in the context of teaching.
Right, like you can look at a car engine, but unless you know about cars, you won't really notice what's important, what's working, or what's broken.
That's a perfect analogy, and that's what this professional vision is all about. It's this ability to filter the information and pick out what really matters from a teaching perspective. It's like having this mental framework that helps you interpret what you're seeing.
Okay, that's super interesting. So we see this big difference in what they said they noticed. What about how their eyes actually moved during that critical moment, when the teacher interrupted the girl? Did the eye tracking reveal anything interesting there?
Absolutely. This is where the eye tracking gets really revealing. So they compared the eye movements of those 6 teacher educators who did mention the critical incident to everyone else who didn't, both the other teacher educators and all the student teachers.
Okay, so comparing the folks who noticed the interruption to those who didn't.
Right. And the results were actually pretty significant. The teacher educators who identified the critical incident, they spent a lot more time looking at the girl during those 5 seconds when the teacher was interrupting her, grabbing those note cards.
So their eyes were glued to her during the interruption.
Yeah. They also had more fixations on her during that time. So it wasn't just glancing at her. It was this sustained focus on her reaction. And this tells us something really interesting about how experience shapes what we pay attention to.
It's like they knew that that moment, that interaction, could have a big impact on her learning.
Exactly. They were anticipating how that interruption might affect her, and that's where their attention went. They weren't just watching the teacher. They were focused on the student and her experience.
Okay, so that's fascinating. But hold on, you said they actually spent less time looking at the teacher during that same 5 seconds. How does that make sense?
That's a great point, and it's one of the most interesting findings of the study. It suggests that their attention was less on the teacher's action itself and more on the impact of that action on the student.
So it's not about judging the teacher, it's about understanding how the student is affected.
Right, their focus was very student-centered. It's like they were trying to gauge the girl's response to see how the interruption was affecting her concentration and engagement.
Okay, so all of this seems to really support the idea that experience matters, right? That this professional vision, it's not something you're born with, it's something you develop.
Absolutely. This study provides really compelling evidence that professional vision is something that is honed and refined through experience and training. These experienced teacher educators, especially the ones who identified the critical incident, they demonstrated a remarkable ability to not only see the key event, but also to recognize its pedagogical significance and articulate it.
Hmm.
And their eye movements during that crucial moment really reflected that focus on the student and their experience.
It's like they could see the bigger picture, the potential consequences of that seemingly small interaction.
Precisely. And this reinforces the idea that professional vision isn't just about what your eyes register, it's about how you interpret what you see, how you connect those observations to your knowledge and understanding of effective teaching practices.
So before we wrap up, let's take a step back. The study used eye tracking, which is pretty cool, but it also had its limitations. What did the researchers acknowledge as potential areas for improvement or further exploration?
Yeah, they were very transparent about that. They acknowledged that this was an exploratory study, kind of dipping their toes into this area of research. And one of the main limitations was the relatively small number of participants who explicitly mentioned the critical incident.
Okay, so they'd want to replicate this with a larger group, maybe get a more diverse sample of educators.
Exactly. They also suggested looking at different kinds of problematic teaching situations, beyond just this one scenario with the note cards, to see if similar patterns emerge across different contexts, different age groups.
So testing it out in different scenarios to see if the findings hold up.
Right. And they also mentioned that it would be really valuable to ask educators directly about their understanding of these situations.
Yeah.
Not just observe their eye movements, but also get their explicit thoughts and beliefs about what they're seeing.
So combining the eye tracking with more in-depth interviews to get a more complete picture.
Exactly. To see how their conscious knowledge and beliefs align with their visual attention and their ability to notice those key pedagogical moments.
Makes sense. So as we come to a close here, let's bring it back to our listeners. What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into the professional vision of educators?
I think the biggest takeaway is that becoming a truly expert teacher, it's not just about knowing the theory or following a script. It's about developing this heightened awareness, this ability to see the subtle but significant moments that happen in a classroom and to understand how those moments can impact student learning and engagement. And this study really shows how experienced educators are more likely to not only see, but actually notice and understand these critical incidents. And their visual attention during those moments is often very focused on the learner and their experience.
It's about seeing the classroom through a different lens, a lens informed by experience and a deep understanding of how students learn.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the forest and the trees, so to speak. Understanding the big picture of teaching and learning, but also being attuned to the individual needs and experiences of each student.
And this idea of noticing, this seems like a really valuable skill that goes way beyond the classroom, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's a crucial skill in any field, in any aspect of life. Whether you're a doctor diagnosing a patient, a lawyer analyzing a case, or even just trying to navigate your own personal relationships, the ability to notice the important details, the subtle cues, can make all the difference.
It's about being present, being observant, and being able to filter out the noise and focus on what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about developing that professional vision in your own field, whatever that may be. And that starts with being mindful of where you focus your attention, what you choose to notice and explore further.
So here's a thought to leave you with. As you go about your day to day, as you encounter all the information and interactions that come your way, take a moment to really notice, to pay attention to the details that might be easy to miss. Are you seeing the critical incidents, the moments that could hold the key to deeper understanding, to more effective action in your own life? And how might your own eye tracking, where you choose to focus your attention, reveal what you truly value and understand about the world around you? This study with educators gives us a fascinating window into how we perceive and interpret the world, and it challenges us to be more mindful, more observant, and more attuned to those subtle but significant moments that can make all the difference. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.